Hello, everyone, and let's get started. Welcome to an Apple Day. We're going to get right into our 5-minute meditation. I accept my past as part of my healing. I have the strength to climb any mountain in front of me. Life still has meaning. I am never alone in my grief. I relax and let all the feelings flow through today. I move forward instead of holding on to past mistakes that rob me of my peace. I undergo a profound emotional transformation as I heal. I know that everything passes, and that includes difficult times. I can ask for help when I need it. I am ready to let go. I am not going to hold back. I rest today when I need it. I feel grateful for all the love in my life. I give myself time and space to feel all my feelings. I am tougher than any obstacle on my path. I release any emotional blocks and I allow myself to heal. The universe lifts me, supports me, and guides me. I focus on my blessings, goals, and memories. I heal from previous hurts and walk forward with my head held high. I am safe. I am hurting, but I am also healing. I already have all the resources I need to overcome this difficulty. I am riding the wave of grief the best I can. I allow peace to fill my soul. This feeling is normal. I allow compassion to heal my emotional wounds. I know that healing isn't linear, and some days will be better than others. I lean on my resilience during tough times. I let myself hurt so I can start letting go. I embrace all of my human emotions. I use difficult circumstances as an opportunity for self-discovery and growth. I am able to find comfort within myself whenever I feel overwhelmed by tough times. I am human and I am allowed to make mistakes. I choose to heal on my own terms. I am a wildflower, capable of blooming through cracks in the concrete. It's okay to be angry at having to grieve. I pass through challenging circumstances with patience and grace. I have the inner strength to endure until better days arrive. I let tough times propel me forward. I believe in my ability to get past every obstacle blocking my path to happiness. I accept hard emotions and allow myself to express them when I need to. I choose happiness over any other emotion that shows up. I keep moving forward and leave my hardships in the past. I allow myself to feel my grief. I emerge from tough times even stronger than before. I am pressing on even when the road is rocky. I have overcome some of the most difficult situations and come out stronger. I am fighting through bad days and earning the best days. I see how adversity reveals my inner strength. I allow my positive thoughts to power me through difficult days. I have faith in my ability to endure anything and everything. And that will do it for our 5-minute meditation. Let's get into the episode topic. Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get into our episode topic. This week's topic is dealing with loss. In many forms, loss can come. I'm going to be talking about a specific one for me, but the general questions can apply to different aspects of loss that you may experience or have experienced in life. So this week's question is, how do you deal with loss? Whether that's death, whether that's financial loss, which I'll discuss in a later episode for myself, broken connections, or even failed relationships. How do you deal with that loss? Whether it's after the fact, or sometimes there's loss that occurs during. So how do you deal with it? Some people, may talk about it. So there's many forms that you could talk about this loss or how it may be affecting you, or just the overall theme of the loss in general. You may, talk or vent to your friends or significant other or your family even. How productive is that conversation that you have? Do you feel like you get what you need out of talking with them? If you're going there to vent, do you also look for advice from them on how to handle it? Or do you just talk to them to, just get it off your chest? Do you talk to a professional, whether that's a therapist, a counselor, any of those? Do you talk to them? How productive do you feel like talking to them would be if you were to talk to them? Or how effective is talking to them? Do you go into your sessions feeling heavy and then come out lighter? Or do you go into your sessions and feel like you still have so much work to do? Do you go into your sessions and come out feeling, I made this step, but now I feel like I've made 2 steps back, because you've talked about things and then you realize there's other things that you haven't addressed. So how do you feel when you have those types of conversations across the board? I think one of the most important aspects is to have a productive conversation, to have a productive talk in general. And productive is, what you put to it. It's what you make of it. It could be just the fact it's productive in the sense that, you were able to talk about it, out loud, because sometimes people struggle with even, addressing things to others. Or productive could mean, someone else helps you come up with a game plan or solution to mitigate the intensity of what you're feeling, so that it's not, affecting you as much. And that could come from, anybody, the counselor, the therapist. It can come from your family, your friends, or even your significant other. How effective is it? How productive is it? Is a question that we should often ask ourselves, or it's a question we should ask ourselves more. But I feel as though the initial hurdle of, is this even worth talking about, is a question that plays in our minds and, can stop the conversation from happening. Old saying of, closed mouths don't get fed, right? But that also applies to what you can be dealing with emotionally. If you don't tell anybody about your problems, or if you don't tell anybody about what's affecting you, it's going to be hard for them to, fix it or help you or come up with a solution if they don't know. Uh, I know that there's often the discourse of, well, I did say something, but, they didn't listen. And it's the two-way street of responsibility, right? With having a conversation, actually talking to somebody. There's the talking itself, and then there's the listening portion. A lot of people listen, and they listen so that they can respond to something, but they don't necessarily always listen to understand somebody. So that is part of active listening, is hearing what the person is saying, taking it in, understanding where they're coming from, and either providing advice or, just, back and forth rhetoric about what their thought process is. But a big aspect of talking that is often overlooked is the listening aspect. It's very, very hard to talk to somebody if they're not listening. If it wasn't the case that people didn't want you to listen to their problems or actually listen to them in general, they would talk to themselves all the time. They would talk to a brick wall. But the fact that they're coming to you as an individual at any point in time shows, at least from their standpoint, that either you're one, a trusted individual, someone that they can, feel like they can be open to without judgment, or you're in the position where, like, you're supposed to listen. Like, that's comes with your role. So, like, for example, a significant other, therapist, or counselor, that's within your role. You're supposed to listen to that person that's coming to you with that problem. Otherwise, the relationship between you doesn't really work. If you're not, as a therapist or counselor, listen to your client or your patient, they kind of feel like, what am I here? What am I paying for? They would go somewhere else, or they just wouldn't go to the service at all. If you're a significant other, supposed to be hearing out your partner, and you don't listen to them, it kind of creates a discourse, because the relationship is bound to dissolve at some point if you don't have that communication. That being said, talking in almost any way that you can think of for situations where you're dealing with loss does help. It really does. You may not feel like you want to talk to a professional about whatever it is, but talking about it will help. Whether it's talking out loud into the void or talking to another individual, talking does help. They may not be able to solve your problems, but it does help you, release some of the burden off yourself. But the other important aspect of talking, so we had, talking is part of the actual conversation that you're having with the person. You have your listening, and that includes active listening to the person. But you also want to make sure that the person that you're trying to talk to, the person that you're trying to tell about these things that are bothering you, especially when it's something heavy like loss, you want to make sure that they're prepared to even take on that information. So one of the things that is super important about having a conversation with heavy things like this is to ask the person you're about to talk to, This is more so for when you're talking to somebody in a non-professional sense. So not a therapist or a counselor. Usually they have more of things in place to be able to diffuse from taking on the weight of the problems that you bring to them, but it's also their job to listen. So this is more for an unprofessional sense. So talking to your significant others, your friends, or your family, ask them if they can carry that load that you're about to talk to them about. Ask them if it's going to be too much. Ask them if they have the mental capacity to, sympathize or empathize with you at this moment in time for the conversation you're going to have. Ask them ahead of time, because as much as your friends and family and even your significant other love or like you, everybody has stuff going on in their lives as well, and it's very important to understand, even when you're going to just vent to others, that you keep in mind that they have stuff that they're dealing with. And if it's the case where someone didn't want to listen to you before, you asking if they have that mental capacity, or even if they want to listen, will make a difference in like how they're able to do the listening part to you. And instead of listening to respond, they may be more inclined to listen to understand you, and then provide advice or discourse about what you're going to be talking about. But as someone that's going to talk about trauma or loss or anything of the sort, you don't want to trauma dump on people, which is the actual terminology for it. You don't want to trauma dump on people. So to make sure that you're not, ask them if they have that mental load, or the capacity, emotional capacity to take on what you're about to tell them at this moment in time. And if they're not, you can come back and visit them another time and say, hey, are you in a better mental space to like hear out my problems and stuff like that? But if they're not in general, then so be it. Reach out to somebody else that may have the mental capacity to be able to do so. As much as we would love for everybody to always be there for us, and to, because you're in this role, you have to be here to listen to me. Sometimes we just don't have the capacity, because you don't know what is going on with every individual, or what they're taking on, or what's going on with them mentally or emotionally. So the kindest thing that you can do for them is that, to ask before you dump. Another aspect of dealing with loss, or another practice you can do, is journaling. So journaling is really good for dealing with trauma, for just getting your day out. I would say even more now for me, I'd probably lean more towards journaling in the sense of like a daily journal, just because time now seems to flow by so quickly, and there are things that may happen on a day-to-day that I may want to remember, and sometimes those memories will be there, but there's other things that when time is moving so fast, it seems to be moving so fast, it's nice to be able to have a way to make life slow down, especially when you're dealing with a lot. It's really, really helpful to be able to have something to slow it down. Journaling could be you doing a computer, do a paper and pen, have a notebook, voice journaling, like you can do voice memos to yourself, anything of the sort, of that nature. And it essentially gives you a way to push pause on everything that's happened. And in the world now, where things happen so fast, and I've said multiple times that it's happening so fast because It's literally already June. The year just started, but it's already the middle of the year, which is crazy to think that time has moved this fast, right? But it also gives you a way to press pause on everything that you're dealing with and be able to address it instead of just having everything pile on top of each other constantly. Because when things do pile over or pile on top of each other like that, you start to feel overwhelmed. It's like, well, what can I do to help alleviate the situation? What can I do to change the circumstances? What can I do? And when you don't have time to analyze or look at what you can do, it becomes a spiral. And spirals aren't good for maintaining, a positive mental state at all. Like, not in the least bit. So it's good to have a way to like kind of press pause. Um, as I mentioned before with talking, venting in any form, uh, Reddit exists. I've seen plenty of posts. I mainly like read like relationship stuff because my relationship's still pretty new. We're a year in at this point, so we had our anniversary recently, and I didn't really date like that. So understanding how other people go about their relationships and different conflicts that can arise um, helps me in navigating my own relationship and like things to not do or what to do to improve things or problems or how to address things, because I haven't had an opportunity to be able to do those things before. So this is a first time experience, and I know he's very understanding and he has more experience in terms of relationships and like having those conversations. I don't. So like he's more of a guy, but I want to make it easier on him by doing my own homework to make the relationship work. And that's something that for any relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic, you do the work to make that relationship work. But yeah, venting in any form. I've seen so many Reddit posts where people, have throwaway accounts or, just post random scenarios. And, it's a bunch of different advice on there. Where it's like, I feel like one of the big ones if you want to take to the internet. But you can also, as I said, vent to your friends, vent to your family, vent to your significant other. You can also vent to the void, as I mentioned as well. Any of those really work. What kind of emotional response do you have to loss? Do you cry? Do you yell? Do you scream? Do you become depressed? Identifying your emotional response to loss is, I would say, one of the most important things when dealing with loss. If you are able to identify how you deal with loss, and obviously you don't always know how you're going to respond to something, especially if it hasn't happened before, but knowing an idea of like who you are as a person and how you deal with things emotionally will help in your recovery. So I say recovery in the sense of when you go through anything, there's going to be a time where you're just feeling your emotions, and you should just feel your emotions for a time, but that doesn't mean you feel those emotions exactly in that same way forever. The reason why it's so important to feel it and know how your emotions are going to come out is to help you, you know, navigate to normalcy in some way, shape, or form. And it may be the case that, your world is not normal anymore, but normalcy in the sense of you being able to function and I know a lot of times that is a hard thing to do. So when it's things like that, I always say, take things one step at a time. For me, I didn't know when things were gonna stop getting bad. It really did. It really did seem and feel like it was just going to be negative, negative, negative for all of 2024. But as I mentioned in my last episode, there's been things that have happened that are positives that have been turned around now, as of the most recent. And there's even positives that were happening while the negatives were occurring. For me, I would say I probably cried more in the last 6 months than I have in a long while. And it will literally just be the thoughts of things of, for me, this loss. So I lost my grand uncle. He is the closest thing that I've had to a grandparent here, because my grandparents did pass when I was fairly young, and I didn't have the opportunity, to see them when they were alive like that. I wasn't old enough to drive, so it's not like I had the choice. But I just didn't have the option to see them as often as I would have liked growing up. And to be able to, actually have time and talk to him, it's nice to have had that bond where I didn't really get to have it, actually build a bond with my grandparents before, because I was so young. That bond was mere glimpses of what potentially it could have been, I guess. But again, I wouldn't know, and I'll never know, because I don't have that opportunity. So him passing was really rough on me, for sure, but also because I was also dealing with other losses at the same time. So for that, I mentioned last episode, everything felt like it was crumbling down upon me, in that sense, but also rebuilding things as I was losing him. I remember when we visited him in the hospital before he passed, and he was so happy to see us, me and my family. I'll probably just did another episode, or I might just say it with my brand, because I have a thing that I'll be dedicating to him within my brand, which is skincare, which I'll talk about later in another episode about that. But he was really special to our family. He's my grandmother's brother on my mom's side. and he was very, very close with my mom's dad, my granddad. And their relationship is basically, even if my granddad never married my grandma, you would think that he and my granduncle were brothers because of how close they were, the type of bond that they had. The conversations that he and I had, like, he would start calling me towards the end. Well, we could say now, towards the end of his life. I didn't, talk to like the older people in my family, like on the phone or anything like that. But I don't know. I was very surprised that like he wanted to talk to me because growing up, I didn't really feel like, because we weren't around them like that, I didn't feel like they really cared, or missed us or had that kind of a connection with us. So like talking to him was like, was nice. He just wanted to hear my voice, hear how I was doing, and how my life was. The person that I'm with now, my boyfriend, he is the first person that I've, like dated. He's the first and hopefully the only person that I've ever brought home. And he met like all of my family, including, my granduncle. And I remember a phone call that I had with him, walking back from class one day. And he had already met my boyfriend in person and everything. And one of the things that I will never forget, that will always stick out to me and will always mean so, so much, is that, he asked how I was doing, and he asked about my boyfriend. What's he do? Where'd you meet him? How do you like him? Does he treat you well? And I can only imagine that's like the type of conversation I would have had with my granddad, bringing, my significant other home. It means the world that he cared to ask. And the little glimpse of having a grandparent, in that moment, it was like that role was fulfilled for me. So that's why I would say it means so much, because in everything that he could have said, that he could have done, he asked. And he cared about my happiness. He cared that he made me happy, and that he seemed like a good person. He is a good person. He's hardworking, and he could see that. It meant a lot. It still means a lot. To have that. I'm crying because I remember very vividly the conversation. It was fall semester, and I was walking back to my dorm, and it was like the peak of fall. Like the leaves were falling and they were changing colors, and like the sun was shining through the leaves as the like sunset was going. And he talked to me until I got to my dorm room about him. Um, he passed this year. And to say that I don't still see him and others don't see him in things or places, the amount that I see him is an understatement. The impact of just that one conversation is so much. So, as I said, I've cried more in these last 6 months, now 7 or so, than I've cried in a very, very long time. I wouldn't say just because of him, but because the overall encompassing negatives that I was dealing with, I did feel like I was going into a depressive state. But I've already been in that state before, like the trenches of that state, and I don't want to go back. So I did a lot of things to try and stop that, try and stop the tumble. My boyfriend has been supporting me in so many ways, because I had talked to him about it. I mean, pretty early on in our relationship, even. Um, Mainly when like all the negatives started to hitting, like it was one by one trickling, and then like they all like started coming in waves. But I expressed to him, like I can feel like like depression trying to like creep its way into my life, but I don't want to go back there. And he's like, I don't want you to go there either, because he's been in um a similar situation. So he's been here for me, um and been encouraging me to not have my emotions take over uh forever. As I said, it's really good to feel those emotions, to uh express them for a period of time, but don't let them take over forever. And he's been, very gung ho about making sure it's not a forever thing, not a forever feeling. Like it will get better, it will be better. Um, so how do you celebrate the memories while dealing with the loss? So, I think I don't know if it's just a Black community thing, with funerals, or not. I've only really ever been to uh, Black funerals, or funerals of Black people or African Americans. Um, but they're not called funerals, they're called celebrations of life, really. Um, so we look back on our memories, our times with the deceased. Um, we share those with the others that are there, so that they, the role that this person plays in your life may be different from the role they play in other people's life, or how the perspective of it may change. So that's ultimately what it is, to celebrate the life, and you get to see um, how so many people viewed fondly of this person. Um, so for us, um, we did have the funeral service, official name, obviously. Um, the first thing was uh, the viewing of the body. So we had almost all the family that could make it, made it, and the people that didn't, sent their condolences uh, virtually or through mail. But the viewing of the body was a very rough one. So my grandmother, his sister, passed in 2004. My youngest brother was 2 at the time, and I am a 97 baby. I am 5 years older than him, so I was about 7 when she passed. And I remember seeing her. I don't remember much other than, seeing I saw my family crying and they were in the room when we saw her, but we didn't like see her for long, essentially. But I remember my brothers seeing her and they essentially started like crying immediately. And I remember, I think they went in first, and like then they were crying. And then I went in and I shed 2 tears. Not because I didn't love my grandmother, but I knew that at the time, um, if I kept crying, my brothers would have cried more. So I stopped crying to be strong for them. Uh, and I would say as soon as like maybe up to 3 years ago, um, I would have nightmares and stuff about like my grandparents, um, and just wake up just missing them so profusely, um, so just missing them so much. Um, I couldn't. Some people, when we got there, they went in straight away and they viewed the body. Um, I couldn't. Um, I walked around, saying hey to everybody, consoling them until I couldn't not go see him anymore. And um, his face, he was smiling, and before they started doing their rites for closing the casket for the night before the funeral, um, I could hear his laugh, and without thinking, it was me and my brothers. We went over, um, and it was like the final viewing. So everybody else had gone and viewed already. I was, dragging my feet, and I was one of the last to view them. And I just said out loud, I could hear him laughing right now. And it made my brother start crying. And just like when my grandmother passed, I couldn't cry at that moment. I just had to hold them because I knew it was rough and I knew it was hard on them. But also because like I could already see so much beauty in the life that he had already lived. Missing him definitely was going to be an understatement, but I consoled my brothers. When it came to the celebration of life, there is like four girls. This is the first time I was in the active like procession of a funeral, and we had to carry like the like wreaths and stuff and the flower pots. There were donations on behalf of decorating his gravesite and stuff. Um, that was the first time I ever did that, and being there, seeing him again, it hurt like hell, man. It hurt like hell. It still hurts like hell. Um, and me and my cousins, you know, we were just, me and my cousins, we were supporting each other. And I don't know, I can't really explain. I didn't grow up like super close to my cousins. I We live far away from each other, so we just didn't have that opportunity to foster that bond again. Um, but there was something that like just happened, that there was so much support, so much love and care that we had to look out for one another. Um, when we reflected like our relationships and our connections with him, you know, there are people. He was an avid member of his church, and he talked. Uh, he had people talk on his behalf from his like, they were part of the choir and part of the like organization organiz- organiz- organization that he was part of within the church. They talked very and spoke very highly of him and his service. Um, and then we have like family and everything share those memories, both at the service and also when we went back to um, our grandparents' house. Um, and kind of like got together as a family and talked and stuff like that. It was the first time in a long time, um, for me, the first time in like basically ever that I'd seen such a big group of like people, you know, coming from like our family for him. And it wasn't just, you know, we're here and we're leaving. Like, we've actually like gone past, you know, just being here for this moment. We all realize and recognize that we did not want the next time that we would all see each other to be at another funeral. So we've actually built those bonds and made those relationships. Have family group chats and stuff like that. And we talk to each other every day. We give each other encouragement every day. Now, um, and when I said talking to your family, right? Sometimes it's hard to talk to family when you're dealing with things because they may be dealing with the same thing. So for my entire family, we were all dealing with this loss. But even though we were all dealing with this loss, we all made room in our hearts, made room in our minds to not only share the burden, but also alleviate the burden from each other and give support. And for me, I'm very family like centric. I love my family so much. I grew up very close to them, my immediate family, and then because of that, I understood the importance of family in general. And it's now extending to extended family. Um, it means so much when you have others that understand your circumstances, but are also able to give you that help, that guidance, and that support that you need day in and day out. They haven't stopped. And that means so much to have, especially at this point in time. Um, I mentioned a little bit before about financial loss. Um, Last year in August, I lost my job. I say lost my job, like it was an amicable split, but it was due to my schedule not fitting the company's schedule based off of what they want, which is like 8 to 10 hour days. They had already like cut hours from what initially I was supposed to be promised, so it stuff was just not working out in that way. But I'd been managing so far, and uh, a lot of negatives happened to me with that loss of job. It was a loss of income, and I had, school like to help with some stuff. Um, but overall, not having the steady stream of income wasn't able to like pay for certain things. So that did require a lot of, even now, a lot of life adjustments. Um, there's a lot I can't do now, or I couldn't do. I mean, even now I can't do them. I just now, just now, um, like last week of May, got a job. So like an actual job, not like an odds and ends, but an actual job. And uh, it was basically like a year of drought and financial insecurity, and that loss, that caused a lot of stress for me. Um, and I mean, I mentioned before about like feeling like life passes you by, um, especially for me. Um, Days seem to kind of run together. Uh, Not having financial freedom, I would say, made it move that much faster, but also made it move that much slower. Um, it's like you want the days to go by quicker, so it's like, well, maybe tomorrow I'll get a job. Maybe tomorrow I'll get a job. Maybe next week I'll get a hit back. Um, and those days can drag on for sure. Uh, but I feel like the most important aspect of that is to keep looking forward. Um, I kept looking forward. I never gave up. I kept looking for something that was going to be meaningful and it was going to be for me. Um, I really was adamant on getting a remote job, um, so I didn't have to worry about like gas or car problems or anything like that. Um, and being in different locations, I won't have to worry about like, oh well, I moved to this side of town and I got a job over here, but school's back. I moved back to the other side, and I don't have to worry about that. I just have to worry about making sure that my schedule for school's put in, and I can work around that. Um, but yeah, it really it really changed things. Um, I would say it humbled me, but I kind of grew up very humbled, so I don't really do too much. But I will say, like, I did try out for more opportunities than I normally would have. Um, I got over the fear of, not being the most qualified for a specific thing. Like, a lot of jobs I sign up for, I don't have like a degree in or whatever, but I know I can, like, based off whatever description or whatever it is in the job description. I just said the same thing like 3 times. I'm so sorry. Brain fog. Um, I essentially, apply for jobs. If I knew I could do XYZ that's listed, I apply for it, even if I don't have the exact credentials, like degree plan or whatever, to match it. So I kind of got over that fear of, having to feel like I had to be perfect for that. But overall, there was a lot of growth that happened. Just dealing with like these two things, then like the last thing, last episodes, dealing with illness, like those were like three major things. Affected me like literally the very beginning of the year, like January 2nd, you have COVID kind of thing. But yeah, there was a lot of growth. I'm a very appreciative for that growth, for sure. Um, but it's taking quite a bit of adjusting. Then and even now, quite a bit of adjusting. I have rambled on long enough. So to close out, gonna talk about three good things. So the first I would say is I have, a bigger connection with my family, right? I have grown to have more individuals in my family that I can reach out to and have support from, in general. So I'm very, very appreciative for my family. Two, I have a much better relationship with my brother now, involved in his life. So that's an extension of family. My significant other, my boyfriend, he's been like the glue that's holding me together, and God has been my rock that I stand on. Very appreciative for both my boyfriend for being him and being so supportive of me during this time, and to be able to have God on my side and in my corner. The third thing I would say is good, or I'm grateful for, is that I have a job now, and at least the problems that have to do with finances can improve because of that. But yeah, I've dragged this episode on long enough. I don't even have like an hour to listen to. But as always, thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Love you. Follow me on my socials at HanapoAday. Questions, comments, concerns, or podcast ideas, definitely let me know. Also, the reason why this episode is coming out a little bit later, I might also have a later episode coming out next week, but it will still be probably out on Friday, if not on Saturday, is because the original platform that I used, which Spotify for podcasters, originally was known as Anchor. They changed their format of how you upload stuff, so I can't do all my editing in the app anymore. But because of that, I now have to do a little bit more work to make sure I get you the episodes. But that's okay. We'll make it work. And I'll get you guys your episodes. But I just wanted to let y'all know that there's a reason for delayed episodes or a difference in formatting for episodes. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening. It's been an hour day. Thank you so much. Bye.